train people to be intuitive. It's a gift. And so I love working with those who feel called to be a healing practitioner and who have that natural gift and then listen to it and explore it. And they are typically pioneers. Like, really, it's like when you step out in this, it's not like there's this really clear formal path like there is in a college, to explore what you're called to do. And so as I introduce our next presenter, like, he is definitely a pioneer. And so, as all of you are probably familiar, the working with the vital body, and we've just been educated on this, it's a different arena than, some of our other college-based, formal trainings. And so it takes a combination of intuition and a high level of respect for working with that field, because there's so much power in that vital body. And those who are intuitive, it's very important to have it's like a different set of ethics. And so I actually do provide an ethics training in our 0 Point Meridian certification program. And so I'm going to do a little segue with 0 Point Meridian as I introduce Sharik Peck. So let me tell you, I met Sharik Peck, who is a physical therapist, and by trade, by career, and he might share his story a little bit of how he encountered this literal vibrational healing modality using tools. And I have to laugh because I still have one of the original Rezzimax toolkits that were bought at a hardware store. And I'm like, let's take the guy mode, right? It's like in a really similar container as the toolkit that has Makita on it, right? But it's like so brilliant that he discovered how we can access something like literal vibration, combine it with tools of the mind, and heal the body. And so when I first met him, I was working with trauma and clients. And I had a client who was not responding to EFT and some of the other, I was trained in EMDR, and she wasn't responding to those. And so I actually have included Sharik in the manual for the 0 Point Meridian certification program. You are right in here, so and it tells the story, and you can kind of see these images. So Sharik actually came into my office, and we had this client lay over an exercise ball because it allows for a compression to happen. And then he showed me the magic. And that moment in my office became something that opened me up to what I learned was 0 point breathing through the 0 point field. And from there, I was like, there's something here I'm supposed to find. I became a student of Quantum University, and my technique eventually became called 0 Point Meridian. So, Sharik, you get credit where credit is due. Thank you for opening a door to me that I did not, well, I knew I was searching for. And it took Tamara Lang and a few others to really fully show me like what it was I was looking for. And thank you. I'm going to let you tell more about yourself from there.
Well, thank you, Christine. Oh goodness, there's so much that we have learned over the past few years, and so much that we'd like to share. And hopefully I can answer a few questions for people along the way. Now, just to throw you off completely, can I share my screen?
That does not throw us off completely. You should be able to do that. We've opened. Can you see
Okay.
the green share button?
Yep, I see it.
Perfect.
So just to throw you off completely, I thought I'd share with you a little bit about what I presented on this past weekend in Dallas, Texas, and that's about how you use these same concepts for animals. And this particular shot was out by where you live, Christine, and a beautiful part of the Wellsville mountain range there. And I thought that this would be a great way to start into what I was going to talk about. You see, this horse that looks extremely calm. She looks peaceful, doesn't she? Just maybe 10 or 12 minutes before that, this horse was charging everybody in the corral. She was charging us. We were diving for cover. She was charging the other horses. She was, I mean, if you had a angry horse, that was her. And the thing that brought her from that state that she was in until the state that you see her on the screen here is just some simple little vibrational tools that we created. Back in the days when we used to take the stuff out of the hardware store and make it work, it didn't work quite right because it wasn't calibrated perfectly. But we've come a long way since then, so I thought I'd better share this. Now, what's really interesting is this horse's background, because that brings a lot to bear on what we're experiencing and what we're talking about here. You see, she was in with two other horses that were just about to give birth, and she had lost her baby. And if we think animals don't, really feel and have emotions and things, she turned into a sour mess for a long time after losing her little baby. What's fascinating about this is that when we started applying some of our tools to her, we helped this little mare to be able to put into context or heal some of the trauma that she had been through. So it's not just us, it's our animals too that have lots of problems from trauma. So yes, I would love to share a little bit about my story, but probably before I did that, it would be good to share with you a little bit about this fellow. Does anybody recognize this fellow?
I
This is
recognize Vegas, which you just had. It was, does
that's the
that
German
relate?
pronunciation there. Vagestoff. The the fascinating thing goes back a little ways. You see, this Otto Loy was a physician back in the whole German region back in the 1920s and 30s, and he discovered the very first neurotransmitter. That neurotransmitter was something that the vagus nerve is responsible for, but how he figured this out and his story is just fascinating to me. Fascinating for a couple of reasons, and I'll get back on Dr. Otto Lowy in just a minute. But my own experience, I woke up in the middle of the night, one night back in 2010, and I just had this overwhelming message that was going, reverberating through me. And the message was this: Sharik, vibration will heal the human nervous system. That was part A of the message. Part B was, now you go figure out how. And I realized right then that the powers that be in this great universe, if that message was from God, God has a sense of humor, because that first part made great sense. Vibration can heal the human nervous system. That was like phenomenal knowledge I was given. But then the part that said, you go figure out how, has put me on a 15-year journey now, trying to understand what exactly that means to and how vibration can help. And I've studied thousands and thousands of devices and frequencies since then. So anyway, back to Dr. Otto Lowy. The really unique part of his story was that one night in early spring, and he was a researcher. He loved to figure things out. But in early spring, he had this experience that woke him up in the middle of the night. And he said, oh, this is really neat. And so he grabbed his pencil and piece of paper at his bedside, and he wrote down his notes fast and furious. And then the next day, when he woke up fully, he grabbed his notebook and said, huh, what was that experience I was supposed to do? What was the experiment? And he could not read his notes. How many of you can, I mean, you wake up the next morning and sometimes you don't remember fully a dream. Well, he knew that it was something important, but he couldn't remember what it was and he couldn't read his notes. And he went around all day long trying to figure that out and trying to make sense of this message that had come to him in the night. Well, the next night, he woke up middle of the night once more, and he could recall exactly what he needed to do in this experiment. But rather than write it all down and wait until a reasonable hour, he decided to go and pick up the items to do the research. And so he left his bed and let's see if I can get this to move. Here's what happened. He went and grabbed two of his European tree frogs, and in both of these frogs, he split open their brisket and he pulled out their heart. And he left it intact fully on one of these frogs. So it was intact by the blood vessels and the vagus nerve and all of these things that go to the heart were intact. And on the second heart, he pulled everything out, but he clipped the vagus nerve. And both frogs, he stuck the hearts into this saline solution that was connected to each other by a little tubule. So in essence, both of these little tubules were sharing the same fluid. And what he found was when you would stimulate the heart of the frog that still had the vagus nerve attached, he would stimulate the vagus nerve and the heart would start to slow down. And he said, okay, stimulate the vagus nerve, we get the heart to calm down. That must be important. But what he noticed next was what led to him receiving the Nobel Prize for medicine. And that was that when one heart started to calm down, the other one that didn't even have the vagus nerve attached, but it was connected by a tubule to the first tube, but that second heart started to follow and synchronize with the first heart. That led to the discovery of acetylcholine, the very first neurotransmitter. What's really cool about this is if you understand acetylcholine and its role in the nervous system, it's all about helping the body heal. It's all about keeping things regulated. And what he found, what he later termed vagus stuff, is acetylcholine, this cool chemical that the body can release that can help us heal. Now, I want to show you just a little bit about my pup, and then we'll probably get off of our lecture that we had for the American Veterinarian Chiropractic Association meetings. This little dog is scared of just about everything, especially other dogs. But somehow she found this really cool little genetic thing inside of her. I don't know what it is. Every time she gets scared, we'll watch her do this. How many of you have seen something like that in an animal? That little shake it off. Every time she gets scared to death, when she finally starts calming down, she'll shake off the chemicals of stress. And those chemicals of stress affect us all in very different ways, but one of the things that we have found is that vibration, one of its powerful effects is that it can help us release those chemicals of stress inside of all of us. And now you're probably wondering, what's he showing on the screen now? Any of you recognize what that is? It's a bunch of bones, right? This is what we call a hangman's fracture. Can you see that the bones, the upper cervical bones, don't line up here? There actually should be on that second cervical vertebrae, there should be a bone that goes up through the first one to make the head sit in the right location. But you can see here through the ear canals on the right and left side, the head is straight, but the neck bones don't line up. This is what happened to me when I was 2 years of age. Talk about one of those traumas that you don't even remember or recognize or realize what happened. I don't remember the event, but it has affected every day of my life since then. Rupturing that vertebrae in my neck. Well, I was a little boy. I guess I was just under 2, and some neighborhood kids were swinging me around by my feet, and they let go. I landed in the gutter with my body, and my head landed up on the sidewalk. It was that force or that impact that broke off my odontoid process on my second cervical vertebrae. Now, this is one of those important things that has helped define me, because I've had to walk around my entire life since then. For 53 years, I've walked around with this neck that's unstable. And most of the time, that doesn't cause too many problems. I mean, I have neck pain all the time, but most of the time you can get by without worrying too much about that. It was the secondary cause of a serious problem that happened to me when I was 17. I was wrestling and got caught in a bad headlock. Are you starting to see where this can go? Unstable neck, bad headlock. It ruptured a vertebral artery. That's one of the 4 main arteries that goes up into your brain. And I learned how to walk again and learned how to function again. Rupturing my vertebral artery, and the complications from that caused a stroke. I had to learn to walk again and learn to talk and learn to feed myself, and it was quite the experience for a young teenager, 17 at the time. Well, here's what's important about all of these experiences together. When you put them all together, I started to come to an understanding of, and a desire. I started to develop a strong desire to help people heal from hard, traumatic things. And I've spent my life since then trying to help people. Once I got back on my feet, once I figured out how to start learning again, I eventually went to physical therapy school, and I've dedicated my life for the last probably 15 years trying to understand that message that I got one night to help people be able to heal. And the answer came down to this. It's all in the way the nervous system is wired. It's all in that fight, flight, freeze state that is deep inherent in our nervous system. And it affects us in so many ways. I want to tell you a little bit about what happens when we are in that fight or flight or freeze state. Tachycardia means our heart rate goes up. Anxiousness goes up. Our blood pressure goes up. Our face either gets pale or it gets flushed, or it kind of flips back and forth. Our pupils dilate. We perspire. Uterine contraction. I've never experienced that myself, but I understand that happens when a person's in that fight or flight or freeze state, and they're of a different gender than myself. Tremors. Sometimes we'll see tremors when we see the blood glucose levels go up. Anyway, all of these crazy things start happening when we're in that fight, flight, freeze state. It looks just a little bit like, like either we're super, super angry, we've got all the chemicals flying through us, or we're scared. And it looks like the bear's about to chase and eat us. Well, a couple of things that we have found out that make a lot of sense, and I want to share with everybody, is the trigeminal nerve. This is cranial nerve number 5. Now, there's 12 nerves that go straight into the brain stem or straight into the base of the brain. But they don't go through the spinal cord. These are nerves that are all about helping us heal and survive to live another day. And one of the main ones is that trigeminal nerve. It's super important in the fight or flight response. And it has an opposite. If the, well, this is what that looks like. I guess I better show that. The trigeminal system, when we go into fight or flight mode, kicks in all kinds of crazy chemicals. And some of us, even though we don't show this on our face, we have that living and going through us, don't we? Or we can choose sometimes to find that beautiful state of smile and happy, like that little baby. Which would you prefer to be? Well, okay. But let's see what that, whoops, let me see if I can take you back here. An outward view of that fight, flight, freeze state is when the teeth are clenched and the eyes wide open, the nostrils flare, catching or holding the breath, the jaw goes out. All of these crazy things happen because our fight or flight system's taken over, and it's all a chemical response inside of us. Goes back to that tree frog. Those hearts were freaking out. Those frogs were freaking out. But stimulus to the opposite of that trigeminal nerve started to calm down the frog hearts. But that's what that looks like. So here's what can calm it down. It's a balancing act. And it's all about the trigeminal system and the vagus system. Cranial nerve number 5, or the fight or flight that is controlled by that system, is in opposition of the vagus nerve system, which is all designed to help us heal and survive to another day. So a lot of my research and a lot of the tools that we've developed and the techniques we've developed are all geared towards calming down the central nervous system, and particularly trigeminal nerve, cranial nerve number 5, and improving the effectiveness or efficiency of the vagus nerve. How do we do that? There are all kinds of ways that we can jump in through the feet or the hands or the ears, where we've got a body map, even on the tongue or the stomach. Essentially, we have a redundancy built into our nervous system that lets us get into key places in the brain and make changes. If we've got an angry, upset person, one of the best ways to be able to calm that system down is to introduce another stimulus that takes them off of their upset state. And one of the best ways to do that is find another way to get into parts of the nervous system. Well, the feet are a great way. This is from a lecture that I did recently that for the Utah Foot Zone Association, now the American Foot Zone Association. But this image that I shared from Kathy Duvall down in St. George, I love this image. It shares what the vagus nerve is and what it looks like. You saw a picture of that trigeminal system. It's all geared around here. And the vagus nerve actually goes clear down into our midsection, where it communicates and talks to every single one of our organs except for one. Would you guess which one that is? It all has to do with the adrenal glands. You see, the vagus nerve doesn't communicate directly with the vagus nerve, or the adrenal glands don't have a direct connection of the vagus nerve, but the vagus nerve talks to the adrenal glands. This is what we're talking about when we describe a adrenal um, um, I can't remember of the name of everything right off the bat. Sorry. Sometimes that's what happens when you've had a stroke, is your brain can do a sudden erase and clean. Um, but it's that hypopituitary thalamic axis. The way that the vagus nerve can affect the adrenal glands is through all of these other communicators, and vice versa with the. So you don't want to have the fight or flight system and the vagus system, which is the rest and digest system, all on the same communication pathway, or you might get the lines crossed sometimes. You see, we either need to rest and digest, or we need to run away from a bear. You've got to have those systems so that they're not completely running each other all the time. I don't know where I'm going with that, but let's skip on. So what's the
Well, I
vagus
don't
nerve?
know if you know that on our first talk was on the adrenals.
I wish I had
So,
caught it, but yesterday I was just trying to catch up with being
yeah,
gone
it's
for
fine.
several
So
days.
it's really cool that we're connecting it. And what we talked about that day was that the adrenals have to communicate with each other. And so what you're saying now is the vagus nerve and the adrenals have they kind of have a relationship, but not a direct relationship. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of like the gas pedal and the brake.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, the
they're
adrenals are gas
opposites.
pedal.
It's really hard to push both at the same
You
time.
can't, but perfect. You just said it.
But
Got it.
but if we understand the vagus nerve and what it can do and how it does it, it makes it a lot easier to be in control of that process. So the vagus nerve, it modulates inflammation, it strengthens memory, it helps you breathe, increase salivation, controls the relaxation response, inhibits depression. How does it do that? Well, it regulates your serotonin production. And you know, the world is running around saying, well, I've got to have a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor running through me because that's how I'm going to regulate my serotonin. The problem is it doesn't work that way. You actually need to improve vagus nerve efficiency so that the body produces its own serotonin and regulates that. But it's all about calm and rest and digest, not popping another pill. Sorry, I digress there. There's a whole lot more afferent than efferent fibers. What that means is the vagus nerve is really good at sending lots of messages to the brain about what's happening in the body. We actually need to enhance that communication going on to be able to keep everything in the brain and the rest of the systems working well. And there's a dorsal vagal complex versus a ventral vagal complex. You may have heard that in some of the work by Dr. Porges. I had an opportunity a year ago to share the stage with Dr. Porges in um, at a presentation that I got to do on this, and I got to hear from him firsthand. But it doesn't make sense to a lot of people what this dorsal vagal, ventral vagal is. So I'm going to break that down really quick for you. The dorsal vagal is what goes to all of your organs. And think of it as something that's very hard for you to control, other than if you can feed it good food. The ventral vagal complex is what controls a lot of our more thinking and things that you can control of how the vagus nerve works. One of those happens to be heart rate. If you calm yourself and slow down your heart rate, you're affecting the vagus nerve through the dorsal and the ventral vagal complex, but the ventral is what allows you to change that. Breathing is something controlled both by the dorsal vagal because you have to breathe and it's automatic. But the fact that you can hold your breath, or as Christine has helped you understand, hold still with your breath gone, that is a ventral vagal effect. That's a time, a pause that you can make in the vagus nerve functioning where you are in control of when you breathe. So understanding a few of these things have gone into the things that I'm sure we're all sharing in this wonderful event. So a couple of things that you need to understand about that. It is the driver in that gut-brain axis. The gag reflex is controlled by the vagus nerve. Heart rhythm helps regulate blood pressure, stomach acid. And what about this cool thing? One of my favorite things controlled by that ventral vagal, or the newer part of the vagus nerve system, is your vocal cords. Think about that the next time you start yelling at somebody. Your vocal cords and how, what comes through those directly affects your heart and your nervous system and your ability to heal. The vocal cords are so cool. Well, this gives you a little bit of understanding and background behind what we created. We created a process and a system where breathing and vibration that happens to be calibrated at a very careful level that helps people heal is, all of these things come together to help the nervous system break up the old patterns. The way that we turn off a migraine headache, and the way that we do so many things that we do with these tools now throughout the world, it all happens because we're getting the vagus nerve to be more efficient, and we're using the vocal cords as the entry into the nervous system. I thought I would share this little picture of a green witch from Broadway. Anybody recognize that? Well, you may not have seen her. This is Cecilia Tickton, and she did play. She played Elphaba on Broadway for some time. But our job in working with Cecilia and a lot of other people that are on Broadway and in the Olympics and other places now is we are improving their vagus nerve efficiency so that they can function at their optimal levels. Let me see if I can take this a little further. And we did that by using or creating a device that uses the purring harmonics of a cat, that simple little narrow range of energy that God created, helps the nervous system to learn how to calm down. And our experimentation over 15 years is that we found points on the nervous system that you could apply this vibrational energy. And because of the vocal cords, you could teach a person how to calm down their central nervous system in a very, very easy way. And do you know what the greatest chemical changer is for people? It's all that beautiful stuff that happens between your ears. Now, I'm not talking about the chemicals that are flying around in there, and I'm not talking about your memories, but the greatest chemical changer for people is what they decide to think about. I mean, put it this way. If you want to spend some time thinking that, that every time you hop on the freeway, there's going to be an 18-wheeler that's going to be coming at you in the wrong direction. If you choose to keep that thought process going, your heart rate will always stay elevated. Your digestion will never figure out how to work right. You'll always be having these wide eyes wondering when that semi is going to hit you. But if you change the way things are happening up here, and you start to recognize that, yes, once in a while, a really hard thing can happen, and many have happened to me and you and others. But if we decide that we can think about things that we're grateful for, we put into motion all these great chemicals that help us to heal. So a lot of our therapies are finding points that give a great entry into the nervous system, asking people to hum, which engages that vagus nerve directly through the vocal cords, and it also slows down their breathing. A very, very important key point, right? And we have them think about things they're grateful for. The combination of those three things is phenomenal for helping people to heal. Here's what it looks like, or what we've tried to do to make that really easy for people. And I don't know if you can hear that. Can you hear that?
For these exercises, you'll need your Rezzimax tuner and accessory tongs. The Rezzimax neck pillow.
Now, I'm not going to take
gloves,
you
and some
through that whole
peppermint or
thing.
lemon oil will make things easier.
What I want you to see is that we have taken a lot of time to put together the steps for how you'd need to do this. And we put together videos and all kinds of things to help people understand how to utilize tools that can help calm down their central nervous system. And boy, have we put a lot of work into our videos and things. Our YouTube channel is about 200 videos strong right now. But we put those together to try and help people to understand what are the steps to calm down their central nervous system, and what are the things that they can do to speed up healing in their nervous system. All of these are points that we've identified. In fact,
comfortable.
all of these points are critical to helping calm down the central nervous system. Can I share something really cool with you? These points that we have discovered are about to be published in an international medical journal, because
That's cool.
we submitted them to a neurology group that did some research on these effects on headaches. And they found that they are more effective than medication. And they found all kinds of things about them. Now, I won't take any more time through that, and I won't take some time through all of that.
I'm gonna put in here, oh, John's got it. The link to your website, which also probably has links to your YouTube channel and what you've been sharing, and the medical journal. That is fabulous. Okay, so I'm gonna let Sharik go into the chat as we switch gears and answer your questions. Are you able to do that, Sharik?
I'm able to do that. Just want to show you the one last thing on my website is there's all the videos on
Recipes. I love it. That's new.
So I'm going to stop sharing, and just know that I'm happy to help anybody. In fact, anybody here that's interested in understanding all the basics, I'll be happy to give you access for free to our $199 basic entry-level course on how to use vibration to heal almost anything.
Oh my gosh, that's a gift. Yay. So so people get a discount and they're going to get access to a training. Is that right? But
I'll do that. I'll put
that's
together.
so generous. Thank you so much. Love it. Okay.